Hey everybody, hope you're doing well out in YouTube land. I guess by popular demand, I'm going to show you the process of making a liner lock folding knife. And if you saw my last video, you saw the scales, and it's just time for me to make another one. And first thing that I can say to anyone who wants to make folding knives is don't be intimidated. They are more involved and more difficult to make than a straight knife, but you know, when I started out making knives, the first knife I ever made was a folding knife. And I know that's backwards and all, and I had to kind of go back and make straight knives and unlearn some bad habits, but I wasn't smart enough to know that it's supposed to be hard, if that makes sense. So anyone with rudimentary skills and patience, you can do it. It's not that difficult. So again, I'm an amateur knife maker. I've been making knives for a number of years and made a whole bunch of knives, but I don't claim to be an expert or the best or anything like that, and I'm sure there's a lot of different ways to do things. I'll just show you the little process that I go through and kind of document that as I make a liner lock. So first up, talk to you a little bit about design, what I do to design a liner lock or my knives in general, and just kind of walk you through the process. And like I said, it'll probably take a couple videos and over a little bit of time depending on how busy I am with my work schedule. So hope you enjoy this. So the first thing you need to know in making a liner lock is how they work. And I'd recommend that maybe you even buy a really cheap liner lock and take it apart and look at the relationship that the parts have to each other. Then you can draw it out on paper. I use a CAD program. It's an app that I bought for Apple computers. It's called CAD, and it's really an inexpensive but cool CAD application. And so I'll just show you, here's a picture of my screen, and I won't go through all the processes, but basically you can see I can isolate this blade. I can choose a center point for it to revolve on an axis, and then I can use the tools to spin the blade. See how I'm doing that? And basically what this is doing is showing me that the lockup of this liner, you see the base of the blade in relation to the liner lock is working, and the stop pins are right. And I print this out and I use these to make the knife. So an alternative way to design it would be to take some cardstock, like heavier paper cardstock, and draw out first your blade and then cut it out so that you have the actual shape of the working blade and the pivot. And then you can stick a straight pin through the pivot and then draw your handle, and you can lay it flat on a piece of cardboard and stick the pin down through the cardboard, and then you can work your little mock-up card knife. And just like I did on the CAD program, you can move it back and forth and adjust the pin until you have the relationship of the pivot hole and the way the blade pivots into the handle just right. And when you get that right, you can mark it and then make another set with the correct hole marked in it. And I used to do that for years before I had any kind of CAD program or something like that. And you simply take a sharpened pencil, and when you draw the second blade, you just poke the pencil through the pinhole that you made in the original blade mock-up, and it will leave a little pencil mark exactly where the pivot needs to be. And that's how you make sure that you drill it and get it right in relationship. So that's the low-tech way of doing that. You do not have to have a CAD program. I'm just showing you the way that I do it currently. Again, you can draw those on paper with a pencil any way you want to. And this is the material we're going to start with for the liners. This is titanium. It's 6AL4V and just under 80 thousandths of an inch thick. I think it's like 75 or something like that. I'll have to measure it to be sure. And this is what I laid the liners out on and then cut them out with my bandsaw. After cutting them out, I ground them to shape in terms of the profile. And then I cut this locking notch right here just with a Dremel tool and a big cutoff wheel. I use the bigger cutoff wheels because they leave a wider space in the slit there so it doesn't gall. And again, it's that simple. You just do it carefully. Now if this design looks a little familiar to you, if you watch my videos, it is a familiar design. What I did is I took that little Kershaw liner lock, I think it was called a burst, that I fixed up, and I thought, what if I was making this thing from scratch? What would I change besides the blade design? So I just altered the handle a little bit, made it a little more ergonomic for my hands, and enlarged the curve of kind of the choil where your fingers go, and thought, hey, this will be fun. So I'd encourage you, starting out, just make it simple. Don't design something really complicated. I want to give credit where credit's due. I like that little Kershaw knife my wife found and I fixed up, and just change that design to where I like it and it looks good, and that's a great way to practice. I don't want to just copy other people's knives or something like that, but man, I can learn from anybody, and I believe in giving credit where credit is due. So that's what I did with this, and who knows, maybe Kershaw needs me to redesign some of their knives. So let's go on to the blade. So this blade material is O1 oil hardening tool steel. It's precision ground. It's 3/32 of an inch thick, so it's really not that thick, but it's what I had on hand, and I think it'll make a nice slim profile knife. So I just spray some glue on, glue the paper pattern down that I cut out. I'll profile it with my bandsaw, grind it, and also drill and ream the hole for the pivot. And it's about that simple. No problem, it's easy. So the first thing I do is drill a hole for the pivot pin, and I drill this a little bit undersized. It's going to be a 3/16 pivot. I drill it one size smaller, and then you see here I'm using a 3/16 of an inch reamer. I'm putting a little bit of oil on it so it cuts easily through this undersized hole, and then I'll just push the reamer through a couple of times and get a nice straight parallel hole that's really round. A reamer will make a hole that's much rounder than a drill bit will, and it'll also be a lot straighter and give you something to pivot on with your pivot. Just like that. So I'm taking it over to my bandsaw. This is a little Harbor Freight bandsaw, metal cutting bandsaw that I bought years ago. And my table is kind of old and messed up, so I just put a piece of plywood on top of it like this. And I simply just feed carefully. This O1 is fully annealed, so it actually cuts pretty easy. And I'm just carefully cutting as close to the paper pattern as I can. Nice thing about a bandsaw like this is it saves a lot of grinding belts, especially in profiling. And I just cut carefully and slowly. I don't force the saw too much. Just use a little push stick like this. And I'll get a nice rough outline of the blade so that when I take it over to the grinder, there's not a whole lot of grinding to be done. So this little 62.5-inch bandsaw does a great job of profiling. When I cut it out, I leave a little bit of extra steel on the flipper, and I'll leave a little bit of extra steel on the base so that they're not too long, or too short rather, and have to make another one. From the bandsaw, I go over to my Burr King grinder, and we'll fire this up and start doing the profile grinding. Apologize that my hand's kind of in the way there, but you get the idea. I'm just carefully profiling. I'm not pushing too hard, getting the steel too hot or anything like that. And just going to the edge of the paper. And again, I try to get these as close to the finished shape as possible, but always leaving a tiny bit of extra material on for when I grind and stuff like that, that I have a little extra to work with, and just get that profiled out. So here's what we've got so far. This is kind of fun. I just stuck aluminum 3/16 standoff through it to just use as a temporary pivot to show you what we've got so far. So we've got two liners like this. You can see how the blade fits in there really nicely. And it's already looking like a knife. This is so fun. Even though it's looks kind of like a knife and it feels like, hey, it's all down here from here, hell from here. There's still a lot of complex operations, but I always love this because you can see kind of what the finished knife is going to look like. And I think that thing is going to be really cool. So there'll be, still need to make the backspacer and obviously do a bunch of other stuff, but that's what we're going to cover right now. And hope you enjoyed this so far.